Well, hey everyone, Jamie Trull here, your favorite CPA and financial literacy coach. And today we're going to be talking about a specific tax credit that came with the COVID stimulus plans that I'm still finding people every single day have not heard of. And I feel like I've been shouting it from the rooftops, but this is something you can still get. And I'm recording this in 2022. It's not going away anytime soon as far as I am aware. They have not made any plans to get rid of it. This is something you can still claim for 2020 and 2021, but you need to be in the know. So we're going to talk about the employee retention tax credit today, which let me tell you is even bigger for a lot of companies than PPP was. All right. So if you have not heard of this, or maybe if you have and you just haven't taken the steps to claim this credit, I want you to listen up because I'm going to give you some highlights about it because it does get really technical. I think that's one of the reasons that there are so many business owners that have not claimed this because the rules are complicated. But I don't want you to miss out on it. I don't want you to just keep, walking along just because the rules are complicated. I want you to claim this credit because it can be super helpful, especially for those businesses that were impacted by COVID. So let's jump into it and talk about how you would know whether or not you would qualify for this credit. So number one, the reason you would know you qualify for it is if you were in business before February 15th, 2020. Now, there are some ways for businesses that were started after that to potentially get ERTC. I'm not going to cover that in detail here, but that's called a recovery startup business. But for the purpose of this video, I'm talking to businesses that were in existence before February 15th of 2020. Okay. You also need to have employees in 2020 or 2021 outside of just you and your family members. Okay, so if you were your only employee or if you're only employing your husband, unfortunately, the employee retention tax credit is not going to be helpful for you. But if you employed part-time or full-time employees outside of yourself and your family in 2020 and or 2021, then this is something that you're going to want to pay attention to and you could potentially qualify. So if both of those things are true for you, if you were in business before February 15th of 2020 and you have employees within your business during 2020 or 2021, then we're going to move on to determining whether you qualify in 2020 and or 2021. And there are a couple of different ways to be able to qualify. So even if you don't meet one of them, then you might meet the other. And even if you don't qualify maybe in 2020, you might qualify in 2021 because they actually made the rules a little bit looser for 2021. So let's jump into that. So when we're looking at 2020, there are two different ways for you to be able to qualify. Number one, if you were fully or partially shut down for any period of time during 2020, then you would be potentially eligible for this credit if you continued to pay your employees during this time period, right? So if you were paying payroll, even though you were shut down or partially shut down, then you could potentially be able to get this credit. But that's not the only way. Now, this is usually if you were governmentally shut down, not just if you shut down because of lack of business, right? If you work from home and you could have done your job, then this would not count for you to have been government mandated shut down, okay? But there are other ways that you can still qualify. So that's kind of number one. During that time period, if you were shut down for any time period, then you could potentially qualify. If that isn't you, or perhaps that was you for a part of the time, you can also qualify for a period of time for a quarter during the year if you had at least a 50% drop in gross receipts, i.e. revenue coming into your business is generally what that is, okay? So what does that mean? So if you're looking, let's say at Q3 of 2020, and you were down more than 50% in the amount that you received into your business from Q3, the same quarter of 2019, okay, then you could potentially qualify for that quarter and potentially even for subsequent quarters, depending on some specifics, okay? So that's number one for 2020. You either need to have been shut down or partially shut down or have at least one quarter where you saw a 50% drop in gross receipts. If one of those is true, then you could qualify for the ERTC of up to $5,000 per employee for 2020. And yes, you can still claim that even in 2022, 2023. That is still something that you can actually go back and amend those filings, amend those 941s that you did in order to claim that payroll tax credit. So that's for 2020. Okay, so like I said, the rules got a little bit better in 2021. So even if you don't qualify in 2020, or even if you do, you could potentially also qualify for Q1, Q2, and Q3 of 2021. They did end it as of September 30th. Originally, it was supposed to go through the end of the year. They did change that and took Q4 off the docket. So in Q1, Q2, or Q3 of 2021, if you were shut down by governmental mandate or partially shut down, okay, then you could qualify during that time period. Or if you had a gross receipts drop for that same quarter, so let's say Q1 of 2021 versus Q1 of 2019, now we're going all the way back to 2019, pre-COVID here, if it was more than a 20% decline in those gross receipts, i.e. in the revenue that you received in your business, then you could qualify for those quarters. So payroll paid out to your employees during those down quarters could be eligible for this ERTC credit of up to $7,000 per employee per quarter in 2021, okay? So you can see how this can add up if you actually go and do this calculation. There are some rules around if you qualify in one quarter, automatically qualifying in another quarter as well. So it gets a little bit tricky, but if you know the rules, you can make sure that you're maximizing your credit. The best way to do that, so if any of these things that I mentioned today, if they apply to you, if ERTC might be something that you can get for your business, you definitely need to go grab my super popular ERTC calculator, jamietrull.com/ERTC. That's where you're going to grab it. It is super low cost. I have kept it super low cost. I have sold thousands of these things, and people are really getting a ton of value and being able to get, ERTC tax credits back that are worth, thousands or tens of thousands. I've even had some people tell me that they got back in the hundreds of thousands. Okay. So make sure to grab that calculator. It will help you determine if and when you qualify for which quarters, and it will help you estimate your calculation. Now, again, disclaimer, we do recommend that you speak to an accountant and not just rely solely on the worksheet, but the worksheet is a great way for you to estimate out what that amount should be. So a couple of things just to make sure that I mention as well. If you got a PPP loan, you can still get the ERTC tax credit. However, you cannot use it on the same wages. So if you paid during that down quarter all of your wages, or during the quarter that you were shut down, all of your wages with your PPP loan, those wages would not qualify towards ERTC. However, if you have other wages, then those potentially could qualify. Okay, so same thing with if you used the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, that sick leave, COVID paid sick leave, then you're not going to be able to double dip there either. Okay, so that's important to know. Now, when you're claiming this, this is going to be something that you are not going to claim on your normal tax return. This does not go on your 1040. This is going to be a 941X that you will file for each quarter that you qualify for ERTC. Okay, so again, work with an accountant or work with your payroll company in order to get those filed. Now, I'm going to tell you real quick, I have to kind of give my warning here. There are a lot of companies out there that are doing these ERTC calculations for you that are accounting type companies, and they are charging on a percentage basis. My recommendation, especially if that percentage basis is high, my recommendation is not to pay someone to do this on a percentage basis. All right. My recommendation is instead to have someone help you at a flat cost. And the reason that I say that is because you might be able to pay somebody, this may be something that they could do for a low flat cost, right? But if they're charging you a percentage, and let's say maybe you can get $100,000 back from the ERTC, if they charge you 10%, that's $10,000. There are ways to do this with people who are going to be able to do this at a flat cost, or maybe a flat cost plus a small percentage fee, but any of these large percentage fees, I just do not recommend it, okay? The other thing I'm gonna tell you is it is taking a long time. It's taking a while to get these back, in some cases over a year. So I know people who have been waiting for almost a year for their employee retention tax credit. So know that if you do file during, 2022 or later, right, you're probably going to go to the back of the line. It may take 9 months. It may take a year in order to get this money back. But what a fantastic, amazing day it's going to be when you do, right? So don't put it off. Make sure to go check out my ERTC calculator, see if you qualify, get an estimate of how much you qualify for, and then make sure that you get on revising those 941Xs so that you can grab this COVID credit. Again, there's not a specific day that it's going to go away at this point. You do have some time to file 941Xs, okay? However, we recommend that you do it as soon as possible just because we never know what changes might come down the pipe later. If they cut this thing off and say you can't revise your tax returns anymore, your quarterly filings anymore, then we're gonna have a problem. So the quicker that you can do this, you make sure that you do not miss out on it. And hopefully you found this super helpful. I am here. I'm gonna be continuing to do any update videos. We have a whole playlist on ERTC as well if you wanna go into all the ins and outs and see all the changes that have happened over time. I will see you on my next video, and make sure to like and subscribe.